Hey everybody, Lieutenant Joe here for Hope is Not a Tactic, the school safety and security show. Although we talk about any facility, we try to focus on our schools. So we want to remember our sponsors, RiotTint.com. They make glazing for your windows to give you some protection. Blue360Media.com. That's my publisher. They publish all my books, and we're going to have a whole training section for schools and books for school safety. It's coming. It's going to be amazing. And then MedicalEssentialDiagnostics.com. They're in New Jersey. They have 6 offices, and if you're any kind of a state worker, county worker, local worker, you can go to their facilities at no cost to you and get a full health screening. And you can bring 2 18-year-old or older people with you as well. It's a huge thing to do. Make sure you stay safe. All right, so in this episode, it's not going to be a long one, but there are 2 topics that I want to talk about here. I specifically want to open the door a little bit, so to speak, and talk about what we do with our substitute teachers, and also early arrival or dismissal of students. 2 very important points. So let's look at the early arrival and late dismissal of our students. I've seen many schools that have this program available to them, where parents can bring the children early and drop them off at school. Now, the consideration you have here is that if parents are pulling up and dropping the kids off, and then the kids usually walk a distance, whatever it is, into the school where they're accepted in by a staff member. Many districts have private companies that provide this service, before care and after care, but some districts do it as well. What I have seen is that these staff members who are there, or the private company that's doing it, are not prepared for an emergency. They're not prepared for danger. Now, they might get some conversation from their company or something to do, but the school district really should take it to heart and say, these are our children and they're coming to our building early. So if they're coming to our staff members, your staff probably has more actual training than the private companies that do this. But if they're coming in as a private company there that does your early care or aftercare, you want to make sure that those people are particularly trained to do what you train your staff to do, because they're your children that are going there. And what I've seen many times is I'll go in and I'll show up, and the door is open, and the teacher is in there for before care, and the kids are coming in, and it's lovely, and the parents drop them off, some at the door, some at the car, depending on, their comfort with the kid walking to the building. And they'll go in, and the teacher's getting them to do stuff until the day gets going. I walk right in many of those places. I could be anybody, right? So we have to understand that safety and security doesn't only begin when our regular school day begins. It begins before then. So we want to make sure that if you're going to have a staff person there, you train them in how you train your teachers and staff to identify danger and how to lock down, where to go. I see lots of places where they have a radio, but it's for a radio to their company when they have a private company. It's not a radio to the school personnel or to the security in the district. So my point here is that if you have early care or aftercare, and you have your own staff members doing it as part of their job, make sure they're properly trained. Make sure there's enough of them to secure the door. That door should be closed and locked. And when the parents come, the staff member, whoever it is, should be able to look out the window and recognize, or look at a camera and recognize that that's a parent with a student that's supposed to come in, and not somebody standing there waiting to gang rush you and get in there quick. All right, so cameras would be good, a monitor inside the building so the staff person could look, and then communications that can talk to your security or that can talk to the local police, whether it's before care or after care. Very, very important that you consider these things, and then take a look at your policy and procedure. Some districts have said to me, well, we use a private company and that's up to them. And I said, I get that. It's up to that private company to train their people, but they're your kids. So you want them safe. So you can suggest to that private company that they provide training specific training to their employees that are going to be doing your before care or after care to make sure they're properly trained. And then you make sure they have the right equipment they can call for help. All right. So I need you to think about that, because I got to tell you, I see that in a lot of places. And it's disturbing because anybody could get in there and hurt those kids. The other thing I see is our regular day students. I'd say maybe you open your doors at 8 o'clock in the morning for regular students, and you have parent drop off, and they start dropping off all the kids, and then they go. Now you have staff out there, everybody's watching. That's great. But the reality is, I see lots and lots and lots of schools where parents will drop them off at 7:45, and there's no staff members outside, right? And the kids walk up and they sit on a bench, or they talk to each other, or they stand under an overhang, and they're all by themselves out there. You either have to make a policy and enforce it that parents cannot drop off till 8 o'clock, or you have to have a staff member out there before that first child might be dropped off. So if you see that several parents drop them off at 7:45, then you better have people out there at 7:30 to make sure they can see what's going on, survey the area, and then pay attention to the kids coming. Because if something happened at that time, where would those kids go? They couldn't get into school. It's locked. The doors are closed. There's no adult there to help them. The parents already left and drove away. Do you see the danger here and the liability? So if you have early drop-off kids, you have to have staff watching them, or the parents have to stay till the doors open so that there's somebody to protect those children. All right. So that covers the early drop-off and pickup. Now I want to talk about substitute teachers for a minute. We all have substitutes. And what I see in lots of school districts when I go and I say, have you trained your substitutes in your district's policies and procedures for lockdowns, for fleeing the building, for evacuating? Where would they hide? Do they understand how to use the PA system? Do they know who to call? Do they know what to do if there's danger? Some districts do a great job. Other districts do not. They don't think about it. They say, oh, yeah, well, we tell it, oh, the substitute watched a video before they, whatever it is. You have to take it more serious than that. So what I create for all my districts when I do a threat assessment for them is I create a program where they will specifically train anyone who's coming in being vetted to be a substitute teacher. And I train them on the district's policy and procedure on lockdowns, danger, how to use the equipment, how to make a call, who gets to make the call, all that kind of stuff, where they would go lockdown or where they would evacuate to. And then I have a form that the substitute would read and sign off on that they've been properly trained in all these things. And it can't just be here, read this form and sign off on it. You actually have to provide the training to make sure they do the right thing. Remember, these are your kids. More importantly, they're my kids, right? So I want to make sure that substitutes know what to do. What do you do? And I guess that's the question. Do you do the right thing? Do your teachers understand that if there's a substitute next door, they should go and say, hey, listen, welcome aboard today. You know, this is how we lock down, remind you, here's how the PA works or whatever. Now, I have had, in all honesty, I've brought that up to some of our regular teachers, and they say, well, if I'm going to be giving people security information, then I should get extra pay because now I'm a security person. And I said, no, you're not. Aren't those your kids in the room next door? To just say to that substitute, hey, listen, are you comfortable what to do if there's a lockdown? Do you know where we go? Do you know how to use our PA? I think that's a common decency thing to do. But if teachers are going to be upset and they don't want to pass that information on, then I would suggest that you do it as a building administrator. Make sure they understand, hey, welcome aboard today. Glad you're here. Do you understand lockdowns? And maybe give them a little quiz. What would you do if there was a lockdown today? Where would you go? How would you lock the door? All those kind of things. We have to understand that sometimes we might have great plans and we might have great processes and everything, but then there's always something that can go wrong. And a lot of times it's the human factor, because you might have a teacher in there who doesn't remember what to do. Last time he or she substituted was 3 months ago, and they kind of forgot. Maybe you have an updated policy or procedure on what to do, right? So take a few minutes, make sure your substitutes are properly trained. All right. So stay safe, everybody out there, and we'll be back with more information very soon here on Hope Is Not a Tactic.